and we are here today at the Sumner County Administration Building in room 112 at 5:30 on March 14th for our Opioid Abatement Committee meeting. And I welcome everyone, and I'd like to call to order. Can I ask someone, would you like to give your invitation?
God, we come before you tonight humble and grateful to be able to be in this room. Help this county as a whole with this problem that we have. God, that we don't hide in sand, put our head in the sand, or hide, and just got to attack it head on, and figure out ways that we can do the most good and the most impact for the people here in our county. God, thank you again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. The Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I have a motion. I would like someone to make a motion to approve the minutes for February the 22nd.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Motion to approve the meeting minutes for March 7th.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Recognition of the public.
Madam Chair, I think we need to approve the agenda first.
Should I not do that? No. Sorry. Approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, moving on. Recognition of the public. Doesn't appear we have anybody running up here to sign up. So we're going to move on to report of the committee chairman. I don't have really anything to share at this moment. We're still working through our process, so we'll move on to old business. First item on the agenda for old business is discussion of application, getting a request from the organization on process to apply. Last week, we went through the application process, made a few changes. Our Justin has made the changes, and we can discuss that tonight if we need to. Some of it, we added some of the words and the verbiage that some of you had asked to put in there.
So all the changes have been made that are online. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at it on the board. Looking at the application itself, the only area that I could not change that was recommended by the finance director, as noted in the email that went out, was on page 4. That's not in your books or in the information that you have, because that's the old one that's in the minutes. So if you look at page 4, scroll down to the bottom. Instead of asking for W-9s or everything, it's going to be exactly the same verbiage as nonprofits when they come to the county commission and ask for funding. And so it says if you are a non-profit civic organization, a copy of the Internal Revenue Service letter recognizing the organization as a nonprofit organization, or a copy of the state solicitation letter for the organization, and the most recent IRS form 990, 990EZ, 990N, as applicable, filed with the IRS. And then underneath it, it asks for the documentation that's been provided to the Sumner County Clerk's Office and Sumner County Finance, saying that if they've received financial assistance, they have to let us know, and that the report also must include the annual audits, if available, a description of the program that serves the residents of the county, and a proposed use of the county assistance. If an annual audit is not available, provide an annual report on the form prescribed by the Tennessee Comptroller of the Treasury. Failure to provide the required documentation will forfeit the nonprofit organization's appropriation and the opportunity to apply for a charitable contribution in the subsequent funding year. Does anybody have any questions about that section?
What's the difference of the 990, the 990EZ, the 990N, as opposed to the actual W-9s from the IRS?
I will inquire about that one for you, because
I'm just curious.
That part I do not know, but I will gladly inquire and give the committee an answer.
Okay. Any other questions?
I know the board that I serve on, we get to file at 990, because we don't, it's like an income threshold. If you don't spend or exceed or whatever, it's different levels of your taxable.
But that's what you file though, right? I'm just thinking, I would
We
like,
have to file with the Secretary of State.
I want to see the IRS saying, yes, Dylan Lambert is a 501c3.
Is it, sure.
Not a form that the IRS says, yeah, now I see what you're filing.
David may know something I don't.
Yeah, that's
Being
just my.
interchangeable, but
Some of the nonprofits have
you pretty
the
much.
990s and some.
You have to fill the 990 out. I'm a treasurer for Galveston here. We have to fill it out every year to apply for different grants. It's a federal requirement, but then you're right, the different forms are based on
Threshold.
threshold.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will make sure you have that information so everybody has it and we have the same understanding.
I just want to make sure that we're not leaving a loop in there that somebody can come in on a day and say, hey, I just got certified yesterday and I'm ready to go.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to prevent.
Madam Chairman, if I may ask, what, are they still required to have an FEIN?
On the application, the FEIN.
No, I'm asking if they are this entity that would be soliciting, would they not need an FEIN?
They should.
And would we want to ask for that as well? I'm just asking.
That's what
I know enough about budgeting to be dangerous, so.
I think
That's on the application process. They are
Number two.
Number two to provide it.
Okay.
Any questions? Terry, do you have questions? Let's move on. Oh, okay, he's not done, sorry.
There was conversation had earlier today, I'm passing this around. A question did come about if a nonprofit could purchase property and or a building or a structure. In doing so, reached out to Smart Tennessee. The response back was that would be up to the county to decide. It would be under our purview too. So if you are wanting them to do so, Will has provided the SAFE Act, which is the standards for recovery for homes, or recovery homes, has provided that information. And then I have also provided the additional question for the application. Do you want to allow this? And so this is now before you.
So this would be added to the application that we're reviewing, right?
Yes, this would be added to the application that you are reviewing.
And Madam Chair, actually, the SAFE Act is not necessarily pertaining just to capital gains product purchases. It's actually for us funding like housing reimbursement or housing vouchers.
Any questions on this questionnaire?
thank you for putting all this together.
So are we, okay, in agreement, motion to, add the additional questions for the application? Would we need to do that?
What did we get?
This came from the,
I presented that actually. Just the information there about the Tennessee SAFE Act.
There's a small part here. I don't know. I might be reading it wrong.
So the reason behind the Tennessee SAFE Act was passed is because to weed out individuals that were providing recovery residents that weren't so-called monitored up to codes, insurance liability policies, things of that nature. So basically what the Tennessee SAFE Act says is that the housing provider has to be accredited by an accredited body, meaning that there's routine checkups, making sure they're following zoning codes, fire marshal codes, things of that nature. The reason I presented this is because I know the state OAC board actually had to put an amendment in there stating that.
so this is just making them more compliant with what they would be doing.
Making sure, right,
We're
yes
not
ma'am.
falling outside
while, or
Right, since 2019.
19?
It was actually federally passed under the last federal administration in 2018, and then the states picked it up in 2019 to implement it. Reason being is because there was a recovery residence, a female house that actually caught on fire and burned in the Madison area, and ended up losing 2 female residents there. Come to find out, the property wasn't insured, it wasn't registered as a business, there was no liability insurance, they were actually subleasing the property from somebody else. So naturally, when the individuals, the females' mothers, wanted to come and sue, it ended up trickling back down to the property owners. It really stirred up the drive for Tennessee to take steps in it.
I was reading it wrong.
That makes a lot of sense. So, do we need to have a motion to add these questions?
Make a motion that we add this to.
If I may, this is gonna have to be submitted as a complete packet to budget, so I think you all can run a little loose on that till you decided on what you think, so.
And then we
A
can pass
packet
it to
to send
budget.
up.
Okay. So, I say motion to add,
Second.
all in favor? You make them whittle through it. Add this, take that, as information.
Not for the process stuff.
Discussion of calendar year meetings. So we had talked last week about, since this is going to be kind of evolving very quickly, that we may have to meet a little bit more frequently in the next couple months. And then it will, as that process slows down, then we would kind of back off, and then we would have to maybe pick up towards the end of the year, because those application processes would open up again. And so you had some thoughts?
So if we're looking right now at the timeline that has been presented, right now, the goal was April 17th through 2024 through May 1st for proposals to be submitted. That maybe walks back a little bit because the application does have to be approved by you all, number one, and then go to budgets and the county commission. So if we meet on the 28th, we are going to run a very tight time frame to get it in front of budgets. But right now, that is what we're looking at. Then May 3rd through the 17th, proposals to be reviewed and scored. May 23rd, hopefully this committee would be reconvened to go over the top scores of funding availability. June 10th, it would go to the Finance Committee, and June 20th to the County Commission. This timetable right now will be fluctuating some, depending upon how we approve the application process. However, in doing so, you all made the motion at the last meeting to earmark all the funds, do a first round of grants of $427,000, well, roughly $427,000 to be first round. So that's going to be budgeted. So we're not worried about the budgetary aspect now. That's going to be going in front of the commission coming up in the budget process. But the time frame for the grants, that is going to be up in the air a little bit.
Any questions on the date? I have a conflict on May 23rd, May 2nd. I have an old packet.
Are we meeting again on the 28th, is that right?
2 weeks from tonight, just to approve the application as a whole, and then to send it on.
What about, I have one on
I'll wait for you.
as well, is that not a thing anymore?
18th is not a thing because that is spring break.
No.
Spring break.
Graduation, probably.
Maybe it's graduation.
We're talking May or March?
I've got it April 18th. That may be
I
all.
had an April,
That's the only one I have for April.
I think you may have said that reoccurring because we was thinking Thursday of every month.
I have a vacation in April. Madam Chair, I'll let you know my date later. I don't want to confuse everybody.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I have a vacation, my husband's taking me on vacation in April.
You're not allowed to go on vacation.
I'm sorry. I'll get you the date.
That's gotta go through budget.
Yeah.
I can delete, we can have a meeting.
I just had it and I didn't want to not. I didn't want to have a long meeting.
Have that, I had,
So we're not meeting in April, we'll just meet at some point.
maybe I didn't put it in my phone.
Maybe.
Not meeting in April works for my vacation.
See? I'm thinking of you, Terry.
Okay, so what, thank you, okay, so,
So looking at the calendar, the 28th, the game plan was the application would be approved. You all would look at all of the advertisement that would be going out and then be recommending it all to go to budgets. Then, next month, budgets would meet on the 15th. County Commission would meet on the 22nd. So we wouldn't necessarily have any agenda items at that point in time because we're waiting on the County Commission at that point in time.
Okay. Go on vacation anytime you want.
so the next meeting then will be the March 28th, and then, okay, and then we send that information to budget, which goes in April, needs clarifying. And then, once they do whatever they do, then it'll go to commission if they approve it, and then we move forward from there, and then our next meeting might have to be in May.
Right, Chair.
Okay. All right. I'm just,
If I may, or Gerald for some time.
go ahead.
Do we need to meet in April?
Yeah.
I mean, March, again, the 28th? The what I'm thinking is, he's got the packet. There's no corrections or additions or deletions that we need to make. Can he not just send that on to budget?
I'll let legal.
We do not have all the corrections in there, that's the problem.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative. What are we missing?
Because there are certain things in the, policy for scoring and fund availability, some tweaks that need to be made to that. And so to get a complete packet together, I want to make sure everything's on board so it can be one packet going up.
Well, I mean, we've got scoring on for tonight's agenda. That's why I was thinking, once we make these changes, can we not just push it to budget?
You could push the scoring aspect of it if everybody's in agreement on that.
Well, that would complete the packet though, right?
But the policy would still need to go up too.
I thought that's what this is.
Policy is
Application.
as a second document, you have a policy for scoring, so.
Right. Then we passed policy last time with the changes.
Well, if you want,
we
we
just
can
passed
go
that as
through
amendments.
my suggestions, and then if everybody signs off on it, I can kick it over to, as part of the packet with the voted on changes.
And that's why I think I'm getting confused. We just passed the minutes, and the minutes from last time, we just asked the director to make those changes, and we passed it. So,
That's the problem.
okay, so I wasn't aware that there was more.
Until very recently.
So, I mean, if we could take legals, and I'm just suggesting, if we could take legals changes, make,
So we need to discuss that tonight, what the changes, additional changes, correct?
Yes.
And then, once we discuss them and everybody understands, then we could pass it on to you to fix it and
As long as
move
the
it on.
changes are voted on and approved,
And
yes.
move it on, yeah. Okay, I'm cool with that.
I'm just saying that'll save us from having to come back, and then that'll put us on a better timeline for legal to be able to get it to budget by the 15th, and then it to be cleaned up and ready to go to full commission.
I just don't want it to get held up much more because we're on a very tight schedule.
Yeah,
Make these changes.
and make the changes.
Yeah,
Get on
that's
that.
fine, I just didn't
That
want
would
to
free
steer
it
too
up.
far off the agenda
Right.
either, so.
You're good. You just get it nipped.
So does everybody have a copy of the policy for scoring? And I have not had a chance to review this with Dustin, so he may have some reason it's in there that trumps my suggestion.
Policy for scoring. Man.
Yes. That was in the back of it. It should be this.
So this one in here is the old stuff.
Yeah.
Right now, it's getting to
Now what's on the railroad?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Just, as I say, I like open discussion meetings. I think it gives a lot more freedom. No dialogue.
Yeah.
I'm ready with you, though.
Madam Chairman's okay if I go ahead and start then?
Absolutely.
All right, the first bullet point, I think we need to reference the compliance aspect of this, so I would just add, fairness, precision, equity, consistency, and compliance in the competitive grant award. Any questions?
Compliance with what?
The competitive grant awards.
Compliance with it.
Yeah, it's just kind of a catch-all that we've all got compliance needs we need to meet. The next paragraph, the last sentence, and I'll have to defer to Dustin on this. That didn't look like a complete sentence, so I'm not sure what we're trying to convey there.
Give me 1 second.
I think it needs to add in accordance with the competitive grant awards.
That is where I believe we were headed.
So,
But sentence, to finalize the sentence,
and that,
to make it a complete sentence.
what were you proposing?
In accordance.
In accordance with the competitive grant application.
I still don't think that completes it. What are we telling them they're doing, we're doing? That this is all, that there needs to be some end, like must be complied with, or something along those lines to finish out the thought. And I'm at a disadvantage. This isn't a legal thing, it's more of a policy thing.
I think the attempt was the competitive grant review criteria and standardized scoring systems would be recommended by the Opioid Abatement Committee with final approval given by the county commission.
Did you write that down?
I had that at one point in time, but
No, I mean, did you just write that down?
Yes.
Then I'm gonna cheat. Can you just get with me
I
tomorrow?
will give it to you tomorrow, yes.
And I hate to be the English teacher, but the second bullet point under scoring, I believe there's a typo. The scores will
Range.
That could be,
I was gonna say,
that could be possible.
1, 2, 3. The fourth bullet point, I'm not sure about these timelines. I'm not sure if they're realistic, but if the committee's okay with it, it doesn't matter to me. It's just we really put a short window on there. Does it have to be? Does there have to be an ending to it?
There does not have to be an ending to it. However, from a grant perspective standpoint, if you do something open range, then you're not giving everybody a deadline date. And so I do not want any confusion from those that are applying to think, hey, it's an open range grant, we can apply for it at any point in time. I'd like to say in our policies, we're either looking at 2 weeks up to 4 weeks.
Upon what, submission, review, after
Application
review?
date,
From the application date?
Yeah,
Okay.
what do you call that, the application season, which would be like the 4 weeks.
So maybe that would help me out, is if we give us, when does this 2 to 4 weeks trigger?
Okay. I mean, right now, we only have the first payment, so we're not looking at this to actually trigger until we receive another payment. So that one's going to be a hard sell because I'm not for sure when the state will actually deposit those funds. I do not want a grant cycle to begin or end when we have no money to award.
But this is on the inception of approval to receive the grant. What you're talking about is continued payments, right?
What I'm asking for is continued grant applications. The grant application comes to us during a cycle. Hopefully, either that cycle, that open window period would be 2 weeks to 4 weeks, and then it would shut down. But because we do not have an idea of when we will receive those funds, I'm not for sure of when it would be the best period.
Is not approving them and getting the money really 2 separate things, though?
Those are 2 separate. Yes and no, because technically you do not want to offer a grant period when there's no money available. We do not have any money available. Once this grant award is out the door, we do not have any more additional funds at this point in time.
Can we add when funding is available?
Or shouldn't we just create a fiscal year, like July 1, and do it? I don't know.
It's almost like,
Depends on
if I may,
each person.
it's been a moment since I spoke to Rutherford County. And it almost seems like when I spoke to them, and really it's been several months, that they just had one period open like October period once a year. But it's been a long time since I spoke to them.
So Rutherford County, we keep a rolling,
Yeah,
we keep
they
them just
rolling?
rolling every month.
Okay, so it's just been a while. So we can't roll like that?
It makes it harder to keep track of monetary-wise and grant-wise. If you're looking on the state level, and I'm using the recycling grants, which is from TDEC, they offer that at one point in time period, which is in November. You're looking at community development block grants through the Department of Economic and Community Development. They offer that in January and February. So there is a window of opportunity that everybody knows.
Let me ask you this, if I say, when the grant application cycle begins, it will last for a minimum of 2 weeks to 4 weeks. That way we've got the grant application cycle as a trigger point, then the 2 to 4 weeks kicks in. Will that work?
That makes sense.
Okay.
That doesn't lock you up.
So I got a question. We're saying we don't have any money. Do we know how much money we're gonna offer on the first grant cycle?
For the first grant cycle, we discussed last month that we had the 927, we're gonna put 427, don't quote me on those numbers, because I don't have them right in front of me, out there, and we will hold back 500. That is actually in our accounts right now. The state has granted that. The next payment should have hit sometime this month. It has not hit as of Monday, when I checked with Cheryl. So we are still waiting to see when that payment hits. I do not want to offer any additional funds until we actually get that payment.
But that's I guess my question is though, couldn't we do like 40,000 grant applications, $20,000 grant applications?
You could if you wanted to break it down that way, but if you break it down that way, the only thing that would hold me back is you may have somebody on the audience that has a great idea, but it's going to cost $200,000 or $300,000. Yes, it is the majority of the funds. We discussed at the last meeting, we would ask for additional financial background to prove that they could actually do it. So I don't want to limit somebody who may have an exceptional idea.
I think it would just be wise to create a fiscal year for the cycle because we already are saying they can only apply one time per cycle anyway in the application.
The recommendation from finance when I first took this position was that if we actually had a grant cycle opened in November or December, because we should have had repayment at that point in time, that way it gives you all a month to review the applications, then we hit the budget cycle itself, and we can make recommendations of how much we're fully going to spend for the upcoming fiscal year. That was recommended at one point in time during my interview process, but there was no follow-up after that.
If we did, when the annual grant application cycle begins, then the annual part can always be a moving target. Would that be of more benefit to the committee or not?
Yeah, because you're gonna have,
If you're dead set on
you're
it
gonna
being
have actually
annual.
so we're gonna have that first period where we give out grants money, okay? And then we have a lag, because we're waiting on money, I reckon. And then we have another open session towards the fall period of time, am I correct? And then that falls within the same same year, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like built off of, funding, because
Built off of payouts that we.
payouts, yeah. So because it's a moving target all the time, people are getting bankrupt, it's not, you can't be.
So you don't want to commit to an annual cycle.
I mean, the state is set to release by April. I mean, the moving target is going to be the amount that is released because of the bankruptcies, but their payment will be here by then.
But now I'm hearing that we're not going to be able to release those funds until everything is passed, which is going to be in June. July 1st is beginning of the new fiscal year, if people wanted to go that route. Because that's kind of where the timeline's going to be anyway, I think, right now.
Correct.
But
So we're starting annual then it'll start in fiscal year, so.
Let's just leave it then when the grant application cycle begins, and then that will always be something you can modify as needed.
City policy can be modified.
Yes, and this doesn't rope you into any specific period or require it once a year. If you have to do it twice a year, fine. But you will have a notice cycle.
Right.
Okay.
Are we still wordsmithing? Longer for 4 weeks.
That's, yeah, discuss amongst yourselves, I'll change it to whatever you
If
want.
we're still wordsmithing, is it no longer for 4 weeks?
No longer than, or no longer,
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay. Yeah, that's right. Then we get to the next bullet point. We talk about the reviewers will score applications in whole numbers, applications amongst each other until the second period has finished. I just want to ensure that there's no deliberation on any of these applications prior to a publicly noticed meeting. So that's more of a warning than a suggested change.
so the reviewers will score the application whole numbers and will not discuss with warning.
Until the scoring period has finished during a publicly noticed meeting. That's what I was gonna add to the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we considered sealed pretty much.
Kind of. Everybody can review them individually, you just can't discuss them. And then when you do, and it's a beautiful system actually, because you do your scoring, and then y'all sit down and look at all your scores, and that moves the deliberation along quicker, so. Now, you flip over the first bullet point, recommend funding to go towards supplies for county. I think we need to get more specific. My recommendation is recommend funding go towards grant-approved supplies for county.
Yeah. But not limited to, right?
Be limited to whatever's approved.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as it falls within the grant-approved, because they've really opened up that window, list of stuff you can apply to, so I think it's gonna do nothing but get bigger. So, you've got quite a bit of latitude there, it's just, we wanna make sure we're following it.
So on that one, does that mean that county agencies will submit a grant application as well? I mean, we would have to have something to come in front of us to vote on, right?
No, I think the way I read this was that you all are gonna have the authority to recommend funding to go towards basically county departments or.
If there's funding left over.
Yes.
I think that's what the category is under. It's hard to see the split, but that bullet point is under. Should there be funding left
Oh,
over, the
yeah.
committee will either.
Now, I guess my question was does that go back to the 500,000 or, that was set aside?
That would be if somebody, I'm going to say not-for-profit, for instance, people that are out there, let's just say they have 100,000, and for some reason they only spent 99,000. Okay, that last 100,000, if they do not spend it within the contract period, falls back, and so if we do not designate where it goes, I'm afraid we're going to have to return it.
Right.
So that way, you all can do a direct appropriation, saying we're going to buy, I'm just going to say, an emergency kits for all departments. If there was funding availability, you have that ability to do the direct appropriation.
Okay, thank you.
Then we get down to grant contracts and reimbursements. I think we need to get some sort of verbiage in there reminding them that the recipients will be required to conduct some sort of reporting that you all establish to report back to the committee.
Yeah, I think that's in our, in the application, it requires, their scope and what they have.
That's fine, but this is a policy. I want to be very clear. This is the first thing people will attack. So it may be in there, but it needs to be restated.
Verbiage to the funding.
I don't have it with me, that really long.
That question Dylan asked last week. Then wasn't there. Yeah, will the funds be awarded for Sumner County nope, sorry. No, that was it. Isn't that what you asked last week, Dylan, with the funds we have, used for Sumner County residents? And then how it was gonna be used?
Yeah, basically, what they're gonna do is
Yeah.
give me a snapshot of
Right.
the work plan. Yes. We've got the what, we've got the who, how much, we just didn't have the what.
And they had to give us all their, and then what they're gonna do with it, and then they are to, it's in here that they're to report back to us.
But this gives you a carve out. If you create some sort of reporting standard, and they know that quarterly, you've got these reports that you need to send to us, it gives you the latitude to do that, and it shows you're doing your due diligence as to making sure the money's being used the way it's supposed to. Other than that, if you all have any suggestions, if those are okay with the committee, y'all can vote on that, and then Gus and I get together and rough out this as being approved pending changes, and we'll get that thrown in together with the packet.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, did you already do that? We did the scoring document. Did we skip update from grant account?
Okay, so the update from me. We have some good news. So, yesterday I did meet with Commissioner Khan, gave me a view of Gallatin, and we're beginning a Sumner County tour for me. So I have a better understanding of the county and the county's needs, and have some idea of some references that you all are talking about. So that was a good thing. Also, I have a meeting with Judge Blanton on Friday to discuss the Justice Grant and a few other potential opportunities that are coming about. I have a meeting with the Sheriff's Office in 2 weeks. I met with Hal this morning and discussed what we are now calling the Opioid Resource Center. In doing so, hopefully with those people that I have just previously mentioned, the game plan that we would like to present to you all is, after all the meetings are done and after everybody has a chance to actually talk about everything, we would like to work with this board on a potential, just a workshop, because it is a lot of money, number one, and number two, what a long-term game plan is. Now, with that being said, I want to present to you all what Wilson County has done. And so Wilson County has actually taken some of their money. They did 2 grants of $1.2 million, and they're doing not necessarily a resource, but they do have components that are out there that are similar to the ones that are presented to you all with the resource center and what they're looking to do long term. And when I say long term, they just brought in a grant for $750,000 because they have the foundation in place. And so hopefully after everybody has talked, we can sit down and try to figure out a long-term plan, number one, that would not do any duplications of services that are being offered by nonprofits, not any duplication of services that the courts may have or law enforcement may have, that we are actually kind of covering the gaps, number one, and number two, that we're able to bring in additional funds. If we go this route of setting the long-term plan out, hopefully the funds will come in where we can continue to assist the nonprofits. One of the grants that has come about that I'm looking at, and as one of you all Wilson County received. And so I am working with select partners to see if this is something we can pursue at this time, even though the foundation has not been solidified. Meaning that if the grantor allows a planning phase, then we would submit under that planning phase. And if we were to hit some of those targets, then they would release the funding. The same would happen with the grant that I'm discussing with tomorrow with Judge Blanton. The Justice Department is offering a grant. It does have a planning phase, so if he and his team wanted to pursue that said grant and it's not ready, they can say this is what our plans are, contingent upon approval of X, Y, and Z. Once we hit those benchmarks, we are requesting those grant funds to actually subsidize what we are wanting to do. So that is where I am headed. Upon talking with the health department, once the workshop is done and all the stakeholders are here that have a large stake in it, then what we have discussed is opening up a larger workshop. And that is where we will be asking the community that are nonprofits or have a stake from their side to come in and share their information. Because we want to make sure that if you do a resource center, that we know exactly what is in Sumner County, number one. Number two, we have all the stakeholders in place. And then number three, the most important part is that we actually have what somebody has referred to as a Rolodex for all of Sumner County that we all are aware of. So any questions about how I'm proceeding? Any comments or suggestions, please?
Just so we're clear, this is above and beyond the opioid settlement.
Yes.
Okay.
They have brought in the additional funds from the grant I just told you about, being the opioid impacted family. But if you look on the backside of that $1.2 million, that is what Wilson County gave to MTSU as part of their opioid settlement to run that facility or to run that.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you foresee completing this Rolodex of the community and the organizations and stuff? I mean, it's quite vast.
It is.
So how are you going to wrap your arms around that?
It is quite vast. So after all of the stakeholders that are internal for us, meaning that I know who I'm working with on the county level, then I will be starting to reach out to everybody that's been listed on the Chamber of Commerce website for Gallatin. There is a nonprofit, so if it looks like it, I'll be reaching out to them, getting that information from them, and asking for them to, if they can refer me to elsewhere. Those that are in the audience were great last week in providing referrals to me and gave me the information for points of contact. So I started making a small Rolodex last week of points of contact who I needed to reach out to so I can have a better understanding and then start bringing more people to the table.
I think the biggest thing that our purpose is to get this implemented, keep it going, because it's going to go on for a long time, and to meet all the needs of the people in the county, not just certain ones. I mean, we have an epidemic, and it's everywhere. And so for us, I think Dustin's so far done a fabulous job. I'm extremely impressed, but I think our job is to make sure that we're going to move it forward that's best practice for the county. I would love for our county to be best practice in the nation for this program. That would be my goal. First, we need to do best practice for the county and then for the state, so that we are doing what we need to do. And I think we're on the right track. We're baby steps, but we're getting there.
I will say, looking and talking with Hal and others, there is a possibility, even though we requested the $500,000 to be held back, which is a nice large chunk to lay the foundation for this program, if you all recommend it and if the county commission recommends it, there is opportunity where we could look at reducing that budget depending on, A, the facility that it goes into. If it is a partnership maybe with Sumner Regional, there's roughly $100,000 budgeted. So if we don't use all of that funding and we come in with a more conservative budget, maybe we can offer a second round of grant funding to nonprofits and other organizations within county government to receive those funds. So I don't want to act like I'm spending all of that money, but on the other side, we need to be able to lay a good foundation.
I guess my concerns Well, I actually got a couple. Actually, this project, the Wilson County, MTSU actually pulled that grant through MTSU, of course. They created a prevention and recovery department done off of their data analytics. We're talking mega university that has the capacity to really pull data to go after these grants. I mean, this sounds wonderful, but I'm also a realist as well.
Number one, they can't go for the grant again for this grant cycle because they have an open contract. Number two, we're going in on the entry side. So when I discussed it with Hal, saying, you know, if the planning aspect does not work for us, is there a component that may be able, we could match? Number one, as far as what would be complementary to their services as well as offer services out there. So looking at it, we have asked for some data from the state of Tennessee, being from SMART. We do have a discussion with Dr. Chapin, just to discuss her grants and how it was awarded, what would maybe work for us, because each grant, I mean, each county is separate, so we're not looking to replicate the whole entire program, because it may not work for Sumner County. But if there's something that may work for us, then yes, we're going to try to steal it.
Right, but I'm going to finish what I was stating, that Wilson County didn't allocate any opioid funds to MTSU.
They do have the resources, and they do have some that have been allocated, is my understanding. There was a meeting last week which it was presented, and that's how we actually took that when we sat in on it.
Right, but nothing's been agreed upon yet. Now, what Rutherford County did with the MTSU is they hired and partnered with the MTSU, paid them $125,000 to create, no offense, basically our application policies and things, and then their scoring. I wasn't here at the last meeting, honestly didn't know about it, but we're asking to keep $500,000 out of money that, for what?
So lay a foundation so we can apply for more grants. If a county approves, if you look at the federal listing, and the county is listed higher than nonprofits, then we're looking to create partnerships with the county and nonprofits to actually apply for it. So that way, this person or this facility can actually administer it and work with those nonprofits.
So basically, to create another county entity, a county department, am I understanding you correctly?
Not necessarily a county department. If this is being spearheaded by the health department and others, it may fall underneath the health department.
Which the health department is partially state funded here, so.
They receive 14% from Sumner County.
Yeah.
The rest is from the state and then some federal grants.
Right. I guess I'm thinking big picture too, because ultimately, according to the number-wise, really going to be cut in half, if not more.
So payments were technically supposed to be cut next year. I mean, we received $900,000 this fiscal year to spend, and then so they're providing projections on an updated yearly basis.
Correct. It is the projections are put out. Those increases were to the settlements that were just recently settled out with Walgreens, CVS, Amazon, things of that nature. But still, year 26, I mean, we're cut in half. So I guess my concern is, ultimately, is the county going to be willing to take up and fund that if the grants don't come through?
If you're looking at it, CVS has already said that they're probably not going to be able to pay us anything. So they're not even on our radar at this point in time. They've actually backed down, saying that they have higher creditors that they have to pay first. So, I mean, for year one and year two, yes. But if you're looking at this project that may occur, I mean, I've already stated that $500,000 may be backed down to a lower cost. But if you're looking at years 2 and 3 for this project that we're laying the foundation for, the operating budget itself is going to decrease significantly as well, because we're looking for grant opportunities. Number one, the startup costs aren't there. Number two, and number three, hopefully our partnerships will start paying off so we know what is going on in Sumner County.
I think that's just kind of hard to do when we're keeping half of the funds from them and not putting them out to the county.
But as stated, some of those funds may be re-released depending on what comes about and what buildings and what other aspects are actually going to be written in. And if not, I mean, this body or the county commission can say no to it and then also return the funds back and saying, go forward.
I think last week when we voted, it was just for him to look into it, number one, and number two was, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody else was here, some of the grant opportunities that he's seen that we can piggyback off of, you had to have a certain savings account.
Foundation.
Savings account had holdback, and so what we voted was to allow him to basically look into it and then go from there. Fully transparent, I'm with you. I didn't love the idea, but I do love trying to make a penny a dollar. And so if that's what we can do, then that's what we're gonna look at. I don't think that we're gonna pursue anything 100%. It was just, hey, see what's out there and then come back to it.
And y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think earlier y'all said y'all only approved the $427 dollars to be available to the applicants, though, right? It's not.
And that was another thing that we talked about last week, is at any point in time, we can say, hey, I don't want that 500 to be held back, I want 250, or I want 100, or I want 50, or I want 0. Like, if we can do as much or as little as we want, it's just from what Dustin found, there were some grants that could not happen, we couldn't even look at unless we had that threshold already available, so trying to stretch it just a little bit.
So currently, we're trying to get the application process done so that we can start moving forward with what we need to do. And as we go, we're moving target. So, nothing is in stone. We're kind of a moving target. As things change, we will discuss and change, try to see what we can do. Because I'm a realist. I don't believe that there'll be money forever on any of these programs. The way our economy is and the way the world's going, I may be dead by then, but I just don't, I'm a realist,
Right.
So anything can change. So it's a moving target, but you have great questions.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
I mean, like I said, I just wanted to state my concern is, $400,000 when you talk about scholarships for treatment, that's going to be absorbed pretty quickly.
That's why I asked the question, was we gonna do 10,000, 15,000? I mean, that's one person.
Yeah, exactly, and that's my whole point. I mean, 400,000,
Right, so what?
at this point with that, it's almost like we're limiting how many people we're even going to fund.
So if you're looking at resource, there is a line item to help purchase beds, and there is a line item that hopefully we can work with Judge Blanton's office in securing funds that we receive money to do a 1 miles work program. So some of that is actually in there that we're having discussions on. It's just a matter of me trying to get all the players together and then have an open workshop. With the 427, that is immediate relief, so that way people can start doing some things, because we realize the longer we hold on, we could be impacting somebody's life. But also looking at it foundational wise, we need to look at long term as well, because when the funds are gone, they're gone.
I do. And I don't want this to be taken out of context or the wrong way, but I think we need to be careful and stay within our scope. And that's kind of where I got confused last week, and I thought a lot about what we said and what we did and what our intentions were and where we're going, and I don't want to discredit anybody's word. I mean, you can save a life, it's worth what? So, I don't want to put the wet blanket on anybody's fire and desires to change anything. But I don't want us to get so far ahead of ourselves, our cart outruns the horses. And we get down in the weeds too far, we try to hold too much money, or start applying for too many grants, or get too many people involved, and too many spokes inside the wheel, when I think our charge is opioid money, and rehab, however we choose to spend that money. I don't want us to lose focus and this turn into a grant committee, and we have everybody in the county and everybody in the state saying, where did you find this grant? What's the match on it? Because we already know. The commission culture don't like grants. We've got resolutions on the books to prove it. If we start sending people down the road, grant applications, and I'm just going to say it like it is, start taking judges out of courtrooms for meetings for grant applications, start taking district attorneys off of cases for grant application review, start pulling the sheriff's department off for calls again, and I said, I don't wanna put the lead blanket on anybody's fire and desires. I understand we have to have somewhat of a foundation there to do it, but I don't want us to get too far out of our charge of what we're supposed to do.
So when I first came upon the opiate money, it was a little bit more than a year ago, and I was downtown at County Day. And our state president, the state chairman, I forget his name, he spoke. I spoke to him afterwards, and what I was so excited about was the amount of money that we have at the state level. And we talked, I talked to him after the meeting, I spoke up in the meeting and asked questions, because I was very excited for what we were getting. And I actually sent back to Chairman Hyde the numbers right there. I was like, look, because that was before we knew how much we were getting, and we hadn't been briefed on it. And he told me how much money was statewide. We talked about the recovery houses we have here in Sumner. He even told me a little bit of a help. He said that you can get into this grant money if you combine with other counties. We're going to be favoring counties that bond with other counties to provide help. And he said, he's like, if you think about that when you go out there, you'll have a better chance of grabbing into the top money. And that's where there's a big pot of money. So that's when I saw the advantage of having a grant assistant here in Sumner County so that we could reach out and try and get into these bigger pots. And that it depends on what they're looking for. We really need to know what the state is looking for.
Yep.
So I just want to share that.
I'm concerned that if we become too myopic in our thinking, that we won't see what is absolutely out there, and that's why we have someone who, but as far as I know, so, I'd like to go ahead and move forward with the meeting so that, and you guys, thank you for your discussion, because I appreciate your expertise and everything, but, we're gonna, like I say, keep moving and keep talking and keep changing and doing. You guys have
I do. So, I'd like to ask legal, where are we? Are we outside of our scope of the ad hoc, or whatever this committee is called?
Opioid abatement.
I understand, but its structure and its intent. Are we expected to go down and seek other grants? I just want to make sure we're within our scope.
Good question for him.
Yeah, and I think we need that clarification as well, because
I think that's the whole purpose of creating this committee, is to decide which direction we want to go. I don't know that this is a legal matter so much as a consensus of the commission. Now, keeping in mind that whatever you decide to do will end up getting vetted through budget and make it to the commission meeting. So there will be more Q&A as it moves its way through, as we see, and attempts at amendments or kickbacks down to this committee. But I don't think everything everybody said, I think, are valid concerns. It's almost one of those points where I'm hired. You tell me your position and I'll get you the facts to prove it. Because either way, you could argue this and have a compelling argument. That's unfortunately why y'all are here, is to decide what your will is.
was our charge to abate Sumner County opioid money?
Well, the only legal opinion I can give on that is it's got to be in compliance with what the state has dictated as allowable expenditure for the money, right? And that list, like I said, keeps growing as to what you can put it on, because they really pigeonhole themselves right out of the gate. But there's a lot of opportunity out there, but with opportunity comes the ability to get over the top of your skis, and then all of a sudden you're somewhere you don't want to be. So I can't really give you a legal answer to that, other than you say, hey, this is what we want to do. I'll go cross-reference it against what the grant requirements were, and I'll say yay or nay. But everything else is, unfortunately, you all's job to agree and sell it.
Right, and we have checks and balances, which is great. So, do we have anything else? I make a
One other question. So we have passed this on, we do not need to meet March 28th. We're waiting on now this to go on to budget. Is that my understanding?
So budget on April 8th.
Okay, right.
15th, I thought.
Budget
15th?
I think it's the second Monday, isn't it?
We have to meet to
Which
talk
is
about
the
the
8th.
advertising on the 28th,
That's on the 28th.
So we're still on for the 28th.
March 28th
Okay.
at 5:30.
Motion to adjourn.